Good morning, Golden Bears. Happy Monday. This is the last week to pre-order this year's yearbook at the reduced rate. Starting this weekend, this yearbook price goes up $10. Be sure to order your copy on the SHS website under the Student tab.
Important information for seniors, the class of 2026. Johnston's will be here on Wednesday to go over cap and gown information and distribute ordering materials. This will be held in the auditorium during Power Hour B. It is very important that you attend.
Also, the holiday food drive starts Wednesday and runs through next Tuesday. Each hallway is collecting specific items this year to help Pantry Pals meet their holiday needs, and all hallways can bring hygiene products. Check with your Power Hour teacher to find out what items your class should bring.
We're keeping it short today so we can get right to the part one of our interview with U.S. Army veteran Dr. Holly Everett. Dr. Everett is a former Golden Bear and SHS alumni and a current Shelby County resident. She is a certified registered nurse, anesthesiologist, and Army Nurse Corps veteran. She served 10 years as an officer in the Army Nurse Corps and 2 years in the Army Reserves, where she specialized as a critical care nurse. During her time in the military, Dr. Everett completed the Critical Care Nursing Specialty Course, Healthcare Recruiting School, and the Joint en Route Care Flight Nursing School. She was awarded the Afghanistan Campaign Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal, and Army Achievement Medal. Following her time in the Army, she spent 3 years in graduate school at the University of Cincinnati, earning her doctorate of nursing practice in anesthesia. She currently works in surgical and obstetricial anesthesia throughout the Community Health Network. She is also the wife to Cody and mom to Riley, Wyatt, and Layton. Here, part one of Dr. Rawlings' interview with Dr. Everett.
Welcome, and I was debating I thought, is it Dr. Everett or Captain Everett? I'm not sure which is going to trump which, but either way, so honored to have you here back at Shelbyville High School. Former student, of course, this is Riley Everett's mother, so we have a lot of connections here. Dad and your brother, we'll talk a little bit about that, but if you could talk a little bit about your background, Shelbyville High School, and maybe some of the activities that you did when you were a student here.
Yeah, so I am a graduate of Shelbyville High School in 2002, and I was actually a year behind Dr. Rawlings. So we spent several times in the hallways together, I would say.
Yes.
Lots of activities. So
Yes.
During school, in high school, I was pretty, I would say kind of well-rounded. So I spent time between soccer and tennis. Those were my main sports when it came to high school, and also show choir. I was definitely a show choir kid. So Mr. Kenmore was actually, his first year of teaching was my second year here. So he had the pleasure of dealing with me as a high schooler, and I really enjoy running into him anytime now that Riley's in the building. So it's very enjoyable to see that. So I was also involved with Fridge Club back in the day, and Courier, which I don't know if you guys still have that, but that was the student newspaper. Also when I was in school. So those were basically my activities besides, a lot of academics. So
Yes, and I do remember you being everywhere in the building and out. So,
yes.
Now, your family, of course, has a long history of service with the military, and just at least we'll go more immediate. Your father served in Iraq, your brother in Afghanistan. Of course, you were an Army nurse overseas. Can you talk about when did you decide that this was a path for you?
So it's kind of funny. The summer before my senior year, this is not a good decision-making tool, but the movie Pearl Harbor came out. Had Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett and Kate Beckinsale in it, and it was about, World War II and an Army nurse and some military guys. I left that movie theater with Alex Beckner, actually. She and I had gone to see it with another friend, and when we left, we were like, oh man, we're gonna be Army nurses. That was awesome. Look at that. Look, like they're around all these guys, and they got to do some really cool things. And we both were interested in nursing anyway. So that was already kind of one of the things that kind of intrigued my interest. My dad was a military chaplain of the aviation unit, so I grew up on drill weekends and going and seeing him fly and things like that too. So I wasn't completely ignorant of military life in a way. However, my dad, and I don't say this arrogantly, but I was a really good student, but by the time I came to my senior year, I was overwriting any essay to get into college, any application. So in order to entice me, he basically said, hey, I talked to Army ROTC recruiter down here and the Navy recruiter, and they're in need of nurses. So, and they're willing to give you a full ride scholarship. if you fill out this application and you get a full ride scholarship, I'll buy you a new car. And I was like, all right, done. So not the best, like I said, decision making skills at the time, but I had filled out all the applications, which for ROTC, they're typically going 3 phases. So I had the first phase done by the end of like October that year. So I had already completed mine, I think of August or September that year, submitted everything, was told I qualified for one through the Navy and the Army at that time. But shortly after, I don't know if you remember, but my senior year, 9/11 happened. So I do remember being in here when watching the plane crash in the towers. I was actually typing up one of my newspaper articles for Courier, and we were down near media room, down near the cafeteria now, but when it used to be that area. And so I remember kind of watching that and then going to my next period, which was AP Lit with Miss Davis, and sitting in there, and that whole day we didn't do any class like at all academic wise, like we just watched news cycle. And I do remember sitting in second period, Miss Davis, when the second tower went down, and I was like, oh, what am I getting into? Like, this is probably pretty serious. And randomly, Judge Meltzer, now Trent Meltzer, was in class with me. And I remember somebody saying, who do you think this is? Who would do this? Why would this? And I remember him saying, the Taliban. And I was like, the Taliban what? Like, what is this? Like, it shows how smart Trent was even back then, and very, like, up to date with politics and world news. So, so I just remember kind of being confused and even asking Miss Davis. I was like, Miss Davis, I just filled out an ROTC application. Like, what? Is this smart? And she just kind of looked at me like, you got some things to think about. So honestly, so I did end up taking that scholarship knowing we were in a wartime military, but I felt very much like doors had opened, and that was kind of what I knew with my dad and stuff. I felt very, secure going into that training and that environment with it, not knowing if I would ever end up overseas or whatnot. I knew it was a possibility, but it became very much a real possibility after that day on 9/11. So.
Right. That took real courage. I mean, I remember that time frame well. Wow.
So.
And I just referenced Mrs. Davis today in class, the no leaking verb rule. So we won't go too far down that line, but
she made me an excellent writer,
absolutely.
but I can still recite every linking verb there is now.
Yes. Yes.